So I continue in this Stupid America series, and you can check out the other videos in this series in the description box down below. And I'm addressing something today that is sure to elicit a lot of very passionate responses in the comment section, I'm very sure. But this propaganda needs to be addressed, and the stupidity of so many Americans on this issue is astounding to me. And now I'm not even tackling in this video, I will in another video in this series, the issue of Second Amendment rights versus sensible gun control or unsensible gun control, what have you. Today I'm talking about one of the real scourges to Second Amendment rights for you as an American citizen. I'm talking about one of the real scourges in our United States political system. And I'm of course talking about the NRA and their love of gun control. Now the NRA purports itself to be, alleges itself to be, pretends itself to be an organization that is fighting for you, the common man and woman, the average American citizen, and your right to defend yourself, the right to bear arms, protecting your Second Amendment constitutional God-given America rights. And the sad thing is that over the years, as the NRA has shifted from being one type of organization to becoming more of a money and political power play type of organization, people have bought into this propaganda. They buy this propaganda. They believe this propaganda. They fall for this bullshit hook, line, and sinker. And while it shouldn't surprise me, the level at which people actually buy into and believe this BS is astounding to me. It truly, truly is. The truth about the NRA is that they are a genius organization in the sense that they are able to effectively play all sides like a fiddle against each other, like great string masters, like great puppet masters, in the interest of self-promotion and self-preservation. What do I mean? Is the NRA, the National Rifle Association, is again in the business of self-interest, self-promotion, and self-preservation. What they are really fighting for is not your individual right to bear arms or to protect in any way the Second Amendment of the Constitution. They are there to fight for themselves, for their money, the money of their interest and their buddies, and for their power and the power of their buddies in Washington, D.C. And make no mistake about it, that is exactly the sole purpose of the NRA. They have become a huge lobbyist machine in Washington, D.C. for themselves and their interest, also as a byproduct, as a result, the interest of gun sellers and gun manufacturers, and not you, the American citizen, not you especially, those that actually contribute to this garbage, continue to contribute, to this lobbyist scheme, the individuals. And that's a fact. It really, truly is. And at the end of the day, if you really start to look at things from an open perspective, you start to look at them from, well, why would somebody do this? Why would somebody do that? Would they really benefit from this? Would they really benefit from that? When you want to find the truth in anything, especially when it comes to anything politically motivated and related, you follow the money trail, and that will always lead you to the truth. And the fact of the matter is, for the NRA, and they goddamn good and well know it, unfortunately so many millions of naive, stupid Americans don't, the NRA knows where the money comes from. And it doesn't come from actually successfully defending the Second Amendment. It doesn't actually come from effecting real change to protect your right to bear arms and defend yourself as an American citizen. It comes from perpetuating a cycle of dependence upon the NRA, both from the individuals and the NRA members and from the gun sellers and gun manufacturers, while also feeding into the system and feeding into the cycle on the other side of the gun control debate, as a result, creating a situation of generating more money and power for the National Rifle Association. The NRA knows that their money comes from gun control talk. The more gun control talk there is, the more gun control legislation that is proposed and or passed, the better off things are as an entity, as a business, as a lobbyist group for the NRA, things are. And that's a fact. And why would I say that? Why does the NRA support gun control, in my opinion? even if they don't come out and say it. Well, think about it. Talk of gun control always leads to more guns being made, more guns being sold, which causes more guns to be made and more guns to be sold. It also leads to an increase of membership in the NRA, in large part due to unjust fears. Some fears legit, a lot of them not. So you take the fact that more guns are sold, more guns are produced, so even more guns are sold, and then you get an increase of membership in the NRA. What does that do? It generates more money for the NRA's coffers. Period. I don't think anybody with a rational, sane brain would dispute this. What it also does, is generates increased political influence and power for the NRA and allows them to flex even more power plays and political muscle by getting more money for the gun sellers and manufacturers that the NRA helps represent, and getting more memberships and more money from those members and increasing the overall size of their organization. It allows them to have more money in their coffers and flex more again of that power and really flex some political muscle. They're also able, with the talk of gun control and talk of gun control legislation, whether there be restrictions on the types of guns, the types of magazines allowed, the types of ammunitions allowed, it allows the NRA to use people's fears, like I said, some unfounded, largely not founded in reality or facts, to justify their own purpose and existence, again, creating a cycle where they are able to, preserve themselves and continue to grow as an organization. And make no mistake about it, the NRA, first and foremost, for some of you gun-toting, flag-waving, Second Amendment motherfuckers that love the NRA and have yearly or lifetime memberships to it, do not be naive about this. Do not be stupid about this. The NRA, at the end of the day, is a business first and foremost. And what's killer about it, like so many other stupid organizations and corrupt organizations in this country, is a tax-free lobbyist organization at that. How ridiculous and stupid is this? All the NRA ends up doing is eventually creating a cycle of dependence from all parties. The gun sellers and manufacturers know that the NRA has a certain will about it, has a certain power about it, has a lot of strength behind it. So if they piss off the NRA, that could be very bad for business. Where if they play nice with the NRA, it could be very good for business. The NRA is able to play the people against each other and against themselves and in favor of the NRA to drive more money into the NRA's coffers via membership and other things that people buy. They are able also to play the politicians against one another and against and in favor of the gun manufacturers and sellers and against and for the people. So that way everybody is trying to get on board with the NRA. Everybody is trying to rely upon the NRA to help their cause and help their agenda. And all that does is leave the NRA in the catbird seat. And that's what it is. And what it really truly does at the end of the day, with all this talk about gun control, it allows the NRA to grow in size, grow in power, and grow financially, and prevents them from having to do anything really to actually defend your Second Amendment rights. It really prevents them from having to go out of the way to actually do something that people want the organization to do, that it proclaims and purports itself to do, because if they actually did it, it would long-term be bad for business, bad for the bottom line. If people want to sit there and say, well, the NRA, they fight for our rights, and they fight for this, and they fight for that. So many people that actually cite that I ask that, can never actually tell me any major legislation that the NRA has been a part of, any major Supreme Court or other civil court cases or circuit court cases or district court cases that the NRA has been a part of that has helped affect positive change in terms of loosening restrictions and bans on certain types of weapons and rounds and ammunition, etc. I'll give you a perfect example. You look at District of Columbia v. Heller. The NRA wanted no part of that. This had the potential to be landscape-changing decision by the Supreme Court, and it did end up being. And the NRA didn't devote a single dime to this. Was it because they were afraid that it might lose? Would it matter? If they really believed in the Second Amendment and they really were an organization that is devoted truly to defending your Second Amendment rights, would it matter whether the case was going to win or lose? If it was something that they were supposed to believe in, shouldn't they be defending that and throwing the resources and efforts and monies behind it? Or was it something else? Were they afraid that the case might actually be successful and the ban on handguns in D.C. Would go away and be overturned? And as a result, it would give one less reason for the NRA to exist, one less way that the NRA could ratchet up the fear, that they could ratchet up the propaganda in order to be able to generate more money again for their coffers and the coffers of the gun sellers and the gun manufacturers, and be able to, increase instead of decrease, if this wouldn't have would have happened, potentially decrease their power as a lobbyist machine in Washington, D.C. Look at District of Columbia versus Heller, Supreme Court decision from, I think it was like 2008, 2009. Pardon me if I don't remember the exact year, but you get the freaking point. At the end of the day, the NRA loves gun control. They love the talk of gun control, and they support gun control, even if they don't overtly do it in front of your fucking face. And why is that? Here's some cold hard truths at the end of the day. The NRA, they know they represent a very small percentage of the population. And in fact, the membership numbers that they give for their organization are by and large bullshit. They don't sit there and weed out the people that are lifetime members that are dead. They sit there and can throw whatever numbers they want out there. But the actual numbers versus what they tell you the numbers are two entirely different things. And they also know that even if they doubled or tripled the size of the lie in terms of the number of membership, they know that at most that would represent 10 to 15 million Americans in a country of 300 plus million. They know they serve a very small but vocal, loud portion of the population. And they also understand that they have been able to, be able to get to those people's fears and those emotions, depart them away from their logic and reason, so that way they could play them like puppets and play them against each other and play them against other sides, play the other sides against them. And that's what they do. The NRA plays on those and preys on those unjust fears of people and bullies the gun business into compliance, preserving the NRA, putting more money in their coffers, giving them more power. And the NRA truly values money and power, not protecting freedoms. To me, the biggest argument I would throw in the case of what I'm trying to make here is, if the NRA was so much about protecting your freedoms, protecting your Second Amendment rights to bear arms and defend yourselves, why did they not support District of Columbia versus Heller, the Supreme Court case? Why did they not do that? Why do they choose to sit there every time there's another school shooting or a mass shooting? Do they choose to ratchet up the extremist propaganda and talk about all this unrealistic shit, at the same time never proposing any real, tangible, solid, logical solutions to fix anything or change anything or solve any problems? It's because they know at the end of the day that they are a business, they are an organization, that as long as the threat of gun control is there and as long as the discussion of gun control is there, it's good for business. And they know that the more of it is there, the more it's good for business. So if you get a little talk as a reaction to a mass shooting, get some talk about restricting assault weapons, the NRA can throw out some extremist propaganda, so that way you get even more talk about it. They could throw out even more extremist propaganda. And what does it do again? It generates more money for the NRA's coffers in terms of membership. It leads to the people that they're trying to appeal to, largely white, older Americans that have certain fears and prejudices and get guided very much by fears and emotions and passions, not logic and reason. Gets them to go in great numbers to the gun shops and buy the guns, so that way the manufacturers have to produce more guns, so that way the gun sellers have to buy more guns, so that way these people can buy more guns and more ammunition. NRA loves gun control. It could give two shits less about your Second Amendment rights. And the sooner more people in stupid America realize this, the better off all of us will be. It is a corrupt, crooked lobbyist organization that cares about self-preservation and self-promotion, their own money, and the interest of their allies, the gun sellers and the gun manufacturers. Not about the American citizens, not about the NRA members and their right to protect themselves and bear arms. And if you truly believe anything other than that, then you really fit into the classification as being a part of stupid America.